Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are joining us from. This is the Stockholm World Water Week, where we are looking at Seminar 4, looking at the role of water in the decarbonization of the global energy systems. My name is Oswald Chanda. I am going to help in the moderation. I am former director of the Water and Sanitation Department at the African Development Bank. I took my early retirement and now just chilling a little bit and doing things to help move the water sector forward. I have with me a number of colleagues that we have developed this seminar with. There are going to be 3 sessions. This is the very first session where we are looking at accelerating energy transition using smart water management. So I have another of the SPC members, that is Scientific Programming Committee, Joyisa Dutra. Joyisa Dutra is a professor, and she is with the Center for Regulation and Infrastructure, and also professor for economics at the same institution. She has been director for regulation and infrastructure at that institution, and she is a former commissioner of the Brazilian electricity regulator. She has over 2 decades of work experience. Now, one of the things that we do is inclusiveness. We have a young scientific programming committee member in the name of Apov Nandwana. Apov Nandwana is a sustainable professional with the international experience at the nexus of water and energy, and is very active in the water use network. He works at the Advancing Water Security and Resilience through innovation and cross-sectoral collaboration. Now, these seminars have been developed in conjunction with co-conveners. So we do have 3 co-conveners that have been working with the 3 of us from the Scientific Programming Committee. We have Xylem, we have the Global Center for Finance, and we also have the African Development Bank. You will meet these during the various sessions. So today's session, we are looking at smart water management, accelerating energy transition. Tomorrow at 14 to 15:30 hours, we have a hybrid session where we are looking at strengthening partnership in mobilizing climate finance. And then finally on 27th from 11 to 12:30, we will have a session on sustainable water management for the energy transition. All this, we are trying to look at the role of water in the decarbonization of the global energy systems. Now, with that, let me just give a little bit of background and framing it up so that we can begin the conversation. We have a keynote speaker who is going to be introduced shortly. We have a panel of experts who are going to explore this topic with us. And so for now, maybe let me just give a little bit of a background on what this seminar is about and the areas that we are going to be focusing on. So for today, in looking at the role of water in the decarbonization of the energy system, we know that water is an energy-intensive sector. There is a lot of pumping that goes on to get the water from the source, to treat it, to distribute it. There is a lot of pumping that goes on. And we are saying that is the levels of energy that are being used in this process. When we look at the energy sources, there is a lot of carbon that is being released in the atmosphere, depending on the energy type that you are looking at. And this is why we are looking at the energy transition. Can we, in the water sector, come up with more climate-friendly technologies? Can we, in the water sector, improve efficiency in the management of water so that we reduce the carbon footprint in the sector? Can we apply technologies the latest technologies that will reduce the carbon footprint? Now, these costs, and hence it requires a period of time in which to do this. And this is why we are looking at a transition. You cannot do it at one point. And so we have invited people that are experts in finance, people that are experts in climate change technologies, adaptation and mitigation. We have invited people that are gurus at financing and institutional development, so that we can look at actions, climate actions that will help reduce the carbon footprint in the water sector, addressing particularly the energy systems that are being applied. So in doing that, I will like to just hand over to Apov to introduce our keynote speaker, and then I'll come back and lead the panel discussion. We'll have presentations from the panelists and ask them a few questions, just so that we can have clarity in what we are discussing and some concrete actions that would help us in addressing or reducing the carbon footprint in the global energy system using water. Over to you, Apov. Please introduce our keynote speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Oswald, for setting the stage. And thank you, everyone, for joining our session. I will briefly take this moment to introduce our keynote speaker, along with our 4 other speakers who would be giving a lightning talk. So first of all, we have Bepan Fakhruddin. He's lead water and climate specialist at Green Climate Fund, where he develops and guides investment strategies for water and climate resilience. Then we have Sean Nelson. He is a senior water specialist at World Water Bank, Water Global Practice, focusing on climate change mitigation in water sector. Then we have Lame Vere. She's a part of Crown Estate, and along with that, she is also co-founder in Lean in Equity and Sustainability, with an expertise in energy finance and decarbonizing via capital markets. Then we have Igor Chodaton. He's International Business Development Manager at Xylem. He carries with him 25 plus years of experience in pump industry, and he is part of advancing sustainable water solution, especially in data centers. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Sri Prakash Singh Rajput. He's a project manager at Collectives for Integrated Livelihood Initiative, Tata Trust, where he leads community-driven projects advancing sustainable livelihood and clean energy transition in rural India. Whoa, that's a very good lineup of speakers. With that, I would like to ask everyone of our audience to please share your association and location with us in the chat, and we would love to know where are you joining from. With that, I am delighted to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Bepan Fakhruddin. He's from Green Climate Fund, and he leads water and climate specialist with expertise in hydrometeorology, disaster risk reduction, and water security. Over to you, Bepan.
Mr. Bepan is still muted.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'll be quickly sharing with you the overall brief that how actually the systemic, interconnected, and cascading risks that water and energy play. As you can know that actually water, actually we are also significantly use the energy. Almost 4% of the global electricity used in the water sector on pumping, treatment, distribution. Similarly, for the energy sector, there's a quite interdependency between the water sector on the cooling the power plant or hydropower and others. So while actually we are looking at this relationship, we cannot actually look at it as a silos. We need to look at actually what are the systems, what are the interlinkage, and how they are actually connected due to the climate change. And a great example, maybe 2023, that how actually the hydropower get actually affected by the water. Next slide, please. Again, if you look at on the water side, water play a very critical role into this mitigation and adaptation side, and also building a low carbon future. If you look at on the globally, 10% of the water actually we create actually emission, and that actually quite equivalent or 5 times equivalent to the aviation, or a similar to 1% of the emission that actually the marine produced. But there are actually hope that we using a more low-tech, low-carbon, and high-efficient technologies, we can actually be more energy efficient in recovery. We can also create a renewable energy integration, as well as we can actually create a circular economy into the water space. Next slide, please. As a GCF, as you maybe know, that this is one of the largest climate financer. We set up by the UNFCCC to serve in the Paris Agreement. We support developing countries to transition to the low emission climate resilient societies by serving as a hub to the climate financing and landscapes with the 50-50 by 30 vision of 2030. Next slide, please. So I just maybe close my talk with how actually GCF creates this kind of water energy nexus in the water side. We try to look at more on the water conservation, efficiency, reuse, early warning, integrated water resource in the energy side, prioritization, we prioritize renewable energy systems and market, equitable access, as well as how we can actually create efficiency and sustainable transport. What GCF actually create a unique, providing a financing, leveraging a range of instruments to create a loan, grant, equity, and guarantor to de-risk the market. But at the same time, we actually support to our most vulnerable community to ensure that actually how they could access the benefit. And one of the uniqueness for our fund is actually to ensuring the 50-50 balance between the mitigation and adaptation. So with these things, I maybe stop here and give floor to the lightning talk to my other colleagues who would like to come forward. Over to you, Apoorv.
Thank you, Bapon, for sharing those valuable insights. We now move into a set of lightning talks. These are short, focused presentations, and each speakers will have 4 minutes to present. So let's start lightning talk with Sean Nelson. Sean Nelson, the stage is yours.
Thank you. And thank you, Apoorv and Bapon, and thank you everyone for putting together this panel. I'll be providing a quick overview of some recent analytical work put out by the World Bank that is helping to shape our view of how to move forward with the prioritizing investments in water, both for itself, but also to decarbonize the wider economies of our client countries. Next slide, please. The most important in terms of providing a complete economic overview for individual countries from the World Bank perspective are the country climate and development reports. They're each focused on one particular country, and this has been an ongoing project over a number of years with each year we release a set of reports for each of these priority countries. They're all intersectoral, and they look at the interrelationship between development, resilience, and policies within the country, and looking at the interplay of how climate will affect a country's economic outlook, and in turn, how a country can react to that, giving their resources and potential World Bank support as well. Because they're intersectoral, we are looking at how water, both the financing for water in the future to deal with the things like climate issues, but also the development needs of the country, as well as how water can support other sectors as well. And when it comes to decarbonization, this is definitely important. For instance, for South Africa, the country has been interested in green hydrogen and increased pump storage, bioenergy, and so on, that all are very dependent on water. So, and in turn are also sources of demand for water that can compete with domestic use, with other industries, and with agriculture. So we are looking at how we can actually move forward with investments that are coherent across entire economies. In the past year, we also improved our analytics when it comes to water security to inform these reports. Next slide. I'm also going to discuss the Water for Shared Prosperity report. This is making the case that for economies to move forward, they need to invest in the water sector. It's not just for the purpose of just the water itself, but the benefits of investments in water for wider economies. When it comes to energy in particular, there's a very clear link with both renewable energy, but also existing energy systems. The most obvious, of course, is hydroelectricity, because high water and gravity are the main inputs for hydroelectricity. That in low-income countries, hydro can be as much as 40% of a country's electricity energy mix. Also important as coolant and as an input for green hydrogen, solar panels, and so on. And that water shortages can have very detrimental effects to electricity production in countries. There are also two other reports that are looking at financing for water that are also relevant here. There is funding a water secure future and assessment of global public spending that makes the case that water is seeing chronic underinvestment across the globe, and also scaling of financing for water, which is our plan to work with governments and the private sector worldwide to finance water. And the last slide here is what a future has in store. Through this report, we're looking at the of where the world is with regards to water storage, both natural water storage, but also built water storage, clean and gray infrastructure, and that there is a growing storage gap, both because of population growth and increased demand for water and climate issues, but also because we're seeing degradation of both natural and artificial storage over time, that this is going to hurt hydroelectricity in particular, and that countries will need to figure out how to actually address this if they're going to maintain the level of renewable energy they have in their grids right now, and also to ramp that up moving forward. I believe that's my time, and I'll pass to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Lame, the stage is yours now.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Lame Vere. I'm the director for Net Zero at the Crown Estate here in the UK. And for those who don't know who the Crown Estate is, we're a major land owner in the UK across land and the sea. And we're custodians of these assets on behalf of the people. I think from our perspective, water as a critical component of energy transition and net zero and decarbonization is becoming even more critical given the year we've just had this year with all the droughts. And we've also had some flood early one year. So we're looking after the coastal regions and ensuring that water is not just a resource, but it's now being seen and treated as a strategic climate asset. Because water and nature, as we know, are quite local. And so it has to be place-based and focus on the impact on communities, but also the development of socioeconomic bridge to provide that just and fair transition. So we are leasing the seabed, for example, for offshore wind, which is critical for energy security, but also we understand that that also creates biodiversity challenges. And so there is that interdependency of nature and climate that is at the top of our agenda, and making sure that our buildings in the city, our regional assets, the land, we have a lot of rural land for farming, which is critical for food security. So we are really at that intersection of land, water, and energy from a company perspective. And my job across the portfolio is to help us to get to net zero, but without unintended consequences, or at least making sure that we're taking the right decisions and the right trade-offs across the different portfolio, because at the end of the day, we also want to make sure that we're improving lives and livelihood in the communities where we operate. So the water system, especially for the UK, is very high energy intensive, from treatment, pumping, waste management, and everything that gets the water to the use case. It's all very energy intensive. So water is energy intensive. Energy transition is water intensive. So you can see the dilemma that we all have to deal with. But with technology and smart water management, we are able to start to really manage the water consumption and the water demand. For example, within the agricultural sphere, precision farming and having technology to really monitor the soil moisture. So you're only watering the plant when it needs water to conserve water. We're looking at building new reservoirs at the national level as critical infrastructure, given the high demand for water, not just for agriculture, but also for domestic use. But we've seen the increase in hyperscalers who are also needing a lot of water for cooling. And so there is that water, energy, land use competition across different uses. I was reading the other day in the papers, I think it was in Taiwan, where the government had to stop the farmers from planting rice because they needed to send the water to the chip making factories. So you can see how it starts to impact lives and livelihoods. So I'm really excited to be here today and looking forward to joining my panelists. In terms of the lens from which I'm looking at this topic is really around the financing for water, the equitable distribution of water access, and of course the sustainability and the viability of the project over the next generation. So I'll pause there for now and pass it on to the next speaker, and then looking forward to the panel discussions at the end. Over to you, Apple.
Thank you, Lame, for this insightful talk. And we definitely have a lot of thought here. So moving on, I would like to give the stage to Igor. Igor, take it away.
Thank you, Apov. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So my name is Igor Sodaton, working for Xarlem. So today it's a pleasure for me to be here at the Stockholm Water World, among so many passionate and forward-thinking professionals committed to shaping a more sustainable future. So today I'm excited to share some insight on the topic that sits, at the intersection of two critical global challenges, which is digital transformation and water sustainability. And so here we will cover a specific one, which is the data centers. So as you all know, so with the expansion, the booming, let's say, of the AI and cloud computing, and in the ever-growing demand for digital services, there is environmental footprint, particularly in terms of water and energy consumption, is becoming a major concern. So based on the research, by 2030, the global data center capacity is expected to reach nearly, above 200 gigawatts, with an annual consumption of 6 billion cubic meter. Okay, so just for your information, 1 megawatt data centers is using approximately every year 25 million liter just for the cooling. So here, that's why we needed to find a smart water management, which is integrating high efficiency pumping, treatment, and monitoring the technology. So here, it's really important to have a circular water solution in order to bring, to make all the data center more sustainable. Next slide, please. So here, this is an example, a typical one for a big hyperscaler data center in China. So basically, as you know, the data centers, they require a cooling system to ensure that the server are working in the right way. And here, when they are building the data centers, they have to comply to a specific criteria, which is the power usage effectiveness, called the PUE, and then the water usage effectiveness, which are both mandatory to make a greener data centers. Okay. So here, the solution that we have provided is it's a kind of cooling hub, which is integrating all the equipment for heat and cooling the building himself, but also to treat the water, controlling, and the fluid mechanical, including the cybersecurity, because here we are talking about data centers, and then the security is one of key important thing for the data centers owners. Okay, next slide, please. So here you have a holistic, water approach to make a more greener digital future for the data centers. So here the solution is including all the equipment that will treat, reclaim the water used to cool down the tower, reclaim this water, treat it, and then resend it to the system. So here we have a kind of a closed loop, and by using that kind of a system, we are able to reduce the water consumption by 40% compared to the standard, I will say, data centers which are not reclaiming the water. And with by integrating also on our pump high efficiency variable speed, we are also able here to reduce the energy consumption up to 15%. Okay, so key takeaway here is that this solution is reducing the OPEX and maximizing the data center uptime by reducing also the global footprint and make these the data centers easy to for scalability. So it's mean that when the data center owners, they want to increase the capacity of the racks, the global footprint is also reduced here thanks to that specific solution that you are providing here. Thank you all for your attendance. Thank you, Apov. I leave it to the next speaker.
Sure. Thank you, Igor. Thank you for sharing those insights. It really adds an important angle to today's discussion. Next, we have Sri Prakash Singh Rajput. And before he starts his presentation, I would like the audience to ask any questions in the chat. The questions would be taken up in the panel discussion, and we will have our speakers answer those. So please use the chat function. Over to you, Sri Prakash Rajput.
Thank you, Apurva, and thanks a lot. Thank you. I'm Sri Prakash Rajput, representing Eastern Tribal Belt of Gujarat from India, representing an NGO called Collectives for Integrated Livelihood Initiative, which works towards empowering rural communities through decentralized energy, women-led governance, and sustainable water energy system, which is to make a pathway for inclusive and resilient development. Next, please. This slide basically gives the principle where whatever interventions are made by SIWI, they have to be irreversible and basically increasing the resilience of the communities with whom we work through smart, climate smart interventions, which are again implemented through self-help groups or collectives of the tribal women with whom we work, and market and demand-led interventions are taken up where local enterprises are developed through including innovation and leveraging the larger investment. Basically, SIWI works towards enhancing the livelihood incomes of the poor tribal farmers, small and marginal farmers, where you see agriculture and livestock are the two core areas from which this livelihood income has to increase. Now, that is again, as we know, that water and energy are crucial for this. So that's where the decentralized energy energy instruments are used to increase the access to water, assured access to water for drinking water purposes, and as well as the irrigation purposes. Whole idea is that how do we take the small and marginal farmer having a small land holding of 0.5 to 1.5 acre to income of around 2000 USD per annum, which is around say you can say 100 to 200 USD per annum. Next slide, please. This program is implemented in 6 states through 5 themes, with the aim to help these communities to have sustainable development aspirations and to make them climatically resilient. Next, please. Rural challenge, again, I said that access to water, irrigation and drinking water. Next slide, please. I'm just talking about this one sample we have taken in Gujarat, two districts, Panchmahal and Dahod, where we implemented this renewable energy and water linkages. How do we do that? So we had the solarized drinking water schemes and solarized group lift irrigation scheme for the small group of farmers, and whereby we could touch to the lives of around 3,289 households, brought around 665 acres of land in irrigation and 670 acres of land to a smart climate smart agriculture. Through climate smart agriculture, we developed around 54 crops. With this help, and women's collectives are the ones which are kind of driving this, is taking it further. So the whole approach is that how these collectives can sustain this whole effort, and further they link it with the market. So one is the energy and water nexus being used to promote the kind of local agricultural production hubs, linking it with the market, making it more sustainable. Next slide, please. Some pictures just to give an example that what is the original situation where women fetching water overheads, solarized drinking water schemes, and where drinking water committees facilitate the operation, maintenance, and governance functions, and they have the doorstep drinking water facilities available there. Next slide, please. This is another example where solarized lift irrigation schemes, they have helped to have these small production hubs or production clusters to help them enhance their income, where this woman, which you see, her name is Kantaben, she raised her income from 60,000 rupees per annum, from this 1.5 acres of land to 2.5 lakhs per annum after the intervention of this solarized lift irrigation scheme, along with the biogas, along with the water efficient technologies like drip, mulch, put together, where integrated pest management interventions help them to reduce the kind of carbon footprint with all these three. Overall, now we are tying up with a local natural farming university where more than 150 farmers are tying up, whereby to check and to study that how far we have been able to reduce the carbon footprint in their farms if we adopt these practices. That is a still upcoming thing, and we'll be able to know in next 3 years. Next, please. Success story, just I shared that how their income levels have increased, from the solarized lift irrigation schemes for this particular farmers in case of lift irrigation schemes. Next, please. This is where we link it to the how do you make these interventions sustainable. If you want to replicate these models across the country or the different states, how do you do that? Then they are linked, their productions are linked with the market. Entire value chain is kind of, worked upon in the local area, right from production to the marketing altogether. I think broadly I'll put it there that solarized lift irrigation schemes helping the small and marginal farmers for enhancing the agricultural output for them and linking it to the market for increasing their incomes and making it more sustainable. So that is the kind of so-called intervention. Thank you. Open for questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing this important perspective with us. That was indeed a power-packed round of lightning talks. Thank you to all our speakers. Now let's dive deeper into these ideas with a panel discussion. I will hand it over to Oswald Chanda to take it over.
Thank you very much for those excellent presentations. A lot of lessons, benefits, application of technologies, and financing approaches that work, And we'd just like to dive a little bit deeper with the panelists. And let me encourage the participants to please write your questions in the chat box. We'll pick them up and direct them to respective panelists. I also would like just to re-echo that please indicate where you have joined us from and your association, that's your company, and so on and so forth. That's helpful information for us. Okay, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box and we will pick them up from there. Okay, Sean, excellent research work that you are doing there, and we would just like maybe to interrogate it a little bit. And so based on that, where do you see the biggest opportunities, for integrating water smart strategies in the national decarbonization plans. And we will flip the coin and look at the challenges. But if you could begin with the opportunities, where do you see the biggest opportunities in the national decarbonization plans?
And thank you. So I would say it really does depend on the country, but I would say that first of all, water is only going to be able to play a productive role in capturing these opportunities if the financing is there and if the relevant utilities and water resources management structures are in place. With that said, I would say that it really depends. Are we talking if you have a country that is going to be, it has a lot of opportunities in hydro in particular, and a lot of untapped potential for hydro, I think that can have a very strong nascent benefit, and that's both a new investment in hydroelectricity, but also maintaining existing dams and also potentially retrofitting existing dams as well, taking an all of the above approach, and that can also enable great investment in pump storage and floating solar as well, and pump storage in particular can also then allow for greater integration of renewables, and having all these linkages can make the grid in particular stronger, and also allow for greater use of, say, solar microgrids as well. Thank you.
Excellent. That we're using the renewable energies, and I like the linkage because Shri Prakash from India has given us quite a number of examples where they are using renewable in the energy transition, but also in empowering the communities in that they are earning more, their facilities are a lot more sustainable. Maybe give specific examples to countries. Could you highlight some of the challenges that you see in integrating water smart strategies in the decarbonization plans? Sean, over to you.
I'm sorry, the connection wasn't that great. There was some static there. Could you repeat quickly?
Okay, I will. So I was saying that maybe I'll ask the question directly. Where do you see challenges for integrating water smart strategies in the national decarbonization plans? If you could possibly give us a very specific example of country or countries, where they are facing challenges in integrating water smart management in the decarbonization plans. Thank you. Yeah. Have you got it now?
Thank you. I would say in terms of going at the country level, I haven't been cleared on a specific country for this, but I would say that, for instance, for the example I gave for South Africa, it's really great that they are looking at new potential sources of renewable energy decarbonization, but it is also important to understand that those could also be competing demands for water as well, especially for a country that famously almost had a day zero not too long ago. And we have also a lot of people on the ground in South Africa dealing with those specific issues as well. I would say, in general, the biggest issue is that, per one of our reports, investment in water, at least public investment in water, is been constantly lagging behind investments in energy, transportation, and other sectors that either directly or indirectly rely on water. There's been limited interest in investments from the private sector because the water sector is not always an attractive place to invest, especially since utilities have low credit ratings or low access to credit. So I would say both making sure that we work with utilities and water boards to really get their financial house in order is really going to be important, but also making sure that they have a higher profile as a result and can have a seated table to really discuss integrated water resources management. That often the water sector, it's not always clear where, from country to country, who has the finding power over decision-making on water. It might be the finance ministry, it might be an environmental ministry, it might be a natural resources ministry. So making sure those stakeholders are engaged are also really important, and making sure that the finance minister in particular is part of those conversations, I think is really important for making sure there's a financing for the water sector that enables the decarbonization of other parts of the economy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will come back to that, particularly the utilities and how they can accelerate their transition to clean and to clean energy and contribute to the decarbonization as well as improve their efficiencies. Let me come to you, Lameve. You are doing a great job there, being stewards of public assets. Building on what Sean has shared, and I like that you're looking at a much broader spectrum here. How are policies or the market mechanism enabling smarter water management, in the UK, and what lessons could be applied more broadly, seeing that you're looking at a number of sectors?
So thank you very much for that question. I think the challenge with most of the innovation around decarbonization and net zero is that they're not scaling as quickly as one would like. So it's not for lack of innovation in the spaces, it's just the scale and then the repeatability of them. But from our perspective, what we're really working on is, especially in our rural portfolio, which is tantamount to food security. So that's where we have 200,000 acres of farmland, is really working with the farmers to ensure that they're using the right amount of water at the right time for the planting season, rather than just having irrigation going on in 24 hours. So they're doing a lot of precision planting and precision monitoring of moisture in the soil. So we're working there to support that effort. The other challenge we have from a UK perspective, given that we're an island, is the flood issue. So the coastal regions are under a lot of pressure from flooding, which we've seen in recent years. And so, like I said in my intro, we recognize that nature and water has to be place-based. So you might have global and national policies to drive some of this mechanism, but the implementation has to be very local and very placed, strategically placed there. So that's the other area where we're really focusing efforts in terms of giving land back to nature for adaptation mechanism. And so we would take kind of aggregates from our marine holding to create flood defenses around the coastal region. And then in the cities, what we're doing for the real estate side of the house is really making sure that the drainage and then bringing nature into the city through a lot of be it trees, meadows, or kind of a little bit of wildlife, just to make sure that the ecosystem is moving along and regenerating. But I think the other piece that is really worrying for me personally, because I'm also from Nigeria, right? So is the water stress that is going to happen, not so much from AI, because everybody thinks that AI is going to blow the energy demand and water demand out of statistics, which is true. But I think the cooling part of energy and water demand is still not understood, as the climate impact and climate adaptations needs to be put in place for really hot cities, cities in India or Latin America or the African nations. Even here in the UK, we've had a really, really hot summer. And so all the cities are not designed for this level of heat or the length and stress of those heats. And so we have to think about how we really balance the use of resources to make sure that we also make the lives comfortable for people today, as well as also thinking about the future generations. So that would be kind of my areas of focus in terms of this conversation, and I'll be really keen to hear how others are managing these challenges. The last part I wanted to just share before I give it on to the next panelist is really from the financial distribution of capital to energy transition, decarbonization efforts. Water and nature are getting the least, because somehow we feel that water has no value, and because we don't really put price on it, so it is priceless. but it is at the core of how we live, how we make things, how we move things. And so if we do not pay attention to it, then the whole decarbonization strategies for many nations will be at risk of that, investing more in water infrastructure, investing more in nature-based solutions, and making sure that we're putting the capital to where the projects are local, rather than trying to finance everything from the center. The other bit is the equity piece, which I also talked about in my intro, was that, the whole low carbon future is really to make lives and livelihoods better. It's not to make life more difficult or make us poorer. And so we have to think about how we distribute jobs that come with low carbon future, be it from the energy side, the water side, the nature side. But there is a place for sustainable growth that nations need to.
Sorry, just to cut in. I'm very interested that you have brought out some nature-based solutions. Now, one of the very powerful examples, particularly when you are getting extremes, as you are doing with temperatures in the UK, do you have examples where some of these could be documented and the impact that they are having, so that people would be more willing and ready to accept the nature-based solutions? If you could just respond quickly in 30 seconds.
So thanks for that. So on the nature-based side, so we are doing a lot of work in creating new wetlands, which act as both a flood mechanism, but also creating habitat around the coastal region. As custodians of the seabed, we are starting to leave out portions of the seabed for biodiversity restoration, and then also on the terrestrial land, we've been planting a lot of hedgerows and we're planting a lot of woodlands to make sure that we're using nature as a defense mechanism for climate impact. So those are kind of the three areas where I would say it's a lot harder in the cities because cities are already dense, but we are doing a lot in the rural portfolio from a tree planting perspective, the wetlands and the meadows that we're creating in our nature, in the rural portfolio, and then of course using the seabed as a carbon sink in itself. It's also very important here.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. And thank you for posting that question in the chat, JV. Very valid questions. We'll come to it. You have two questions there, and I will post them to the panelists very shortly. But let me ask Shri Prakash, he's dealing with the grassroots, and we've gotten some great lessons there, and the great impact of the energy transition from whatever, and mostly they were using diesel-powered machines. Now using solar, they have increased their earnings, and the systems have become more sustainable. But how does the SIWI inclusion framework ensure sustainable water energy systems, installed under your interventions, Shri Prakash?
Yeah, there are two things. I mean, as you say, inclusion framework of SIWI, when I talk about, it's one is that the marginal farmers and the women, this is the kind of, you can say, more than 50% of the population. How do you include them in your planning and the management or implementation of the programs? So the entire institutional design, which has been brought in as part of our program, we ensure that women-led households are the first one, whereby we give our program benefits to them to start with, and that's where they are organized into kind of institutional mechanism where you have a ground level, secondary, and the apex institution, three-layered institution, which not only where on one hand we are trying to change the practices, trying to change the inputs, trying to bring the market linkage. That is one aspect. On the second, there are women farmers being organized in these three layers of institutional mechanism, where they not only help in deciding in what to take, how to operate, then how to sustain that financially, and as well as if there is operation and maintenance related issues are in between, those kind of things. In that sense, I'm saying in a local microcosm, if I talk about, I'm just talking about, say, in one of the clusters, 4,000 households, Now, in 4,000 households, out of that, around 600 households are having access to these solarized irrigation schemes? How do you ensure that they are sustainable? And they are the one who are ensuring that they are taking the decisions, they are taking the demands, they are deciding on the market linkages, which channel of market they'll be opting for. That's one. Second part is this entire grouping of or the set of institutions of women and the small and marginal farmers. If we are talking about decarbonization, whether it is through water management practices or water efficient technologies have to come in, or you are talking about the decentralized energy, you are taking it to their doorstep. We need to convey them to in their language which they understand. Language, I don't mean the letters and words, but the manner in which they understand. And that is, I think, SINI has been able to do it. And that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's helpful and indeed response to these questions. Let me quickly pick some questions from the audience. Bapon, we are going to loop you in because there's a question for you that references the 5 principles for the GCF Water Energy Nexus. The question is GCF support on preparing such kind of proposals that would be, and what would be your recommendation, for preparing complex projects that are integrated and holistic in nature? Does GCF support the preparation process, and what would be your recommendation to move this forward?
And thank you so much. So I can actually just explain that the way it works. So we say that GCF is a catalytic fund. So we provide the project as well as actually capacity building, both sides. So as a country can access up to $4 million for a readiness fund, where they could actually enhance their capacity for understanding the climate change and climate financing, and also generating some pipeline using those kind of financing. Secondly, country can actually just develop a concept note. If the concept note, then they could submit through an accredited entity, who is our partner, to GCF. And as a secretariat, if we like the concept note, then we can actually provide a PPF grant, which is Project Preparation Fund, up to $1.5 million. Because the full package requires a lot of feasibility study, environmental safeguard, gender, whole set of cost-benefit analysis and climate risk assessment. So we normally provide those kind of financing up to $1.5 million for Project Preparation Fund. And that could then come up with the full package for our secretariat as well as board consideration. This is the different kind of mechanism that our partner can actually access financing. And on the top of that, country can also access additional $3 million to upgrade or develop their NDC and NAP system. So these are the quite opportunity that the country can actually utilize to accessing the financing as a project preparation. And that could actually enable them to unlocking large financing, because GCF only provides a large scalable financing, and our average ticket size could be 50 to 70 or 50 to $90 million on an average. Hope that helps on the answer.
Yes, there you are. So the incentives are there for you to embark on the energy transition in the water business, and resources are available to help you prepare the projects, as has been explained. The last question I'm picking from here is from Japanatha. Japanatha is posing the question to any of the four. Any of the four could pick. Are there any formats used for documenting the best practices? A lot of best practices have been mentioned there. And is it possible to suggest carbon finance, 60 euro for every ton of carbon prevented? I know there are some incentives on this, but let me ask for responses from the panelists. Please, panelists, just go in 30 seconds. If you can respond to any of these questions, that will be appreciated. Bapon, the incentive bit of it, the cost, the savings, once you have reduced on the carbon emissions, please take that one up.
Happy to jump in. I think from my perspective as an economist, I think sometimes we need to just put the price of the product, and carbon is a product, and allow the market mechanisms to work itself out. The challenge we have is that we do not have a global carbon price, and that creates a challenge in building out the carbon market, or be it voluntary or compulsory. So I think having proper mechanism to price carbon and allow the market to then take over from there to develop the projects that then generate the credits for sale. I think that would really be helpful, because otherwise you have different modus operandi in different countries and on different projects, and it's not always relatable across projects and countries. So I think a standardized carbon price would really help a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. And Bapon, in 30 seconds.
And also, if you look at many of our projects, we have a quite guidelines. How can you develop this carbon credit, which is called RED Plus program. And the RED Plus program could give you how the reservoir financing could be designed. We normally use that for the forestry case, but also there is an opportunity for utilizing those things for sanitation and water sector. But unfortunately, we didn't receive any kind of proposal on the water and sanitation side.
So there you are. Another challenge. The GCF is waiting for proposals on this. We have had the last question coming from Prashant, is referring to using the costs, as creating a big carbon sink, and how should this be approached. I think there's quite a bit of information on this. However, in the interest of time, I will need to turn over to Joyisa, just to give us a quick roundup and just close the session. Over to you, Joyisa.
Thank you, Oswald. Thank you to our distinguished speakers. Those were very rich and inspiring contributions. The session has reminded us that water is at the center of the energy transition. We heard from the GCF and from the World Bank how financial mechanisms are mobilizing billions to align climate finance and climate, water, and energy goals. And we also saw how technology from Xylem, from Igor, whether in data centers or maybe irrigation systems, how it can dramatically reduce both emissions and water use when managed wisely. Most importantly, we learned from community-led initiatives in India that women's leadership and inclusive governance bring solutions that are not only sustainable, but transformative. So a few key messages stand out from our discussion. The first one, the interdependency between the water and energy sectors, critical under climate stress, emphasizing or underscoring the vulnerabilities that have multiplied. Failing to account for water in energy planning risk undermining the very foundations of decarbonization. Second, innovation and finance. Smart water management depends on investment and risk-sharing mechanisms. Climate finance, blended finance, and regulatory frameworks also are the levers that can bring these solutions to scale. Third, equity. We must not lose sight of who is most affected. Rural farmers, women, and vulnerable communities face the heaviest burdens of water and energy scarcity. When they are part of the decision-making process, we see more resilient, more equitable, and longer-lasting change. Lastly, Lame emphasized the UK approach, moving beyond water as a resource towards water as a strategic climate asset. She also showed us the importance of NBS and how they have increased their share in the portfolio of investments where possible, for instance, rural areas. Looking ahead, our task here is to connect those dots. We need to scale up innovation, to build sound regulatory frameworks that integrate water and energy agendas, ensuring that finance flows to where it matters most. Pricing water is critical in this process. Water should not be treated merely as a resource, but as a powerful accelerator of decarbonization and resilience. Let me leave you with the thought: if we get water right, we get the energy transition right. And if we embed equity, innovation, and resilience into both, we increase our chances of getting the future right. Thank you very much. This was a very enlightening discussion. Next chapter tomorrow, as Oswald mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.